I read Matt Damon said something today literally about this. Matt Damon is baffled by how his children watch films, infuriated as they pause and chat their way through the art form he adores. The way they watch is different to how we did. How can you watch a movie if you're texting? As someone who makes these things, I can't say I love that. Movies as we know them aren't going to be a thing in our kids' lives, and that makes me sad. But that is so true.
So he watches his kids like not pay attention to the art of it?
And he's just furious.
Even we do it.
Yeah.
There's times that I go, oh, they're just going to explain like that they're going after some government agency, and I'm like, I'll just kind of like pick up on that later, and you're back to texting.
Yeah.
But I can see, because he's probably so invested in the film that it's like, you can't turn away. This is when a tear drops. Like I worked really hard to cry on that, you know, or whatever it may be. Yeah.
But that's what's kind of happening because the human species, we're evolving every day and we don't even know it type thing. Yeah. Because our attention span, we can't just sit without our phones and watch a film. I mean, you can, but it's not as common as it used to be. When we used to go to the movie theater 10 years ago, you're there to watch the movie.
Well, that was your entertainment.
Yes.
You had nowhere else to get it,
yes.
So you're going to consume it differently.
And I'll come back to this, but Scarlett Johansson literally is suing Disney right now because they were supposed to do this worldwide premiere of, what was it, Black Widow? Mm-hmm. And that's how she makes her money. When they have a really big global box office hit, she makes a lot more money. However, they at the very last minute go, oh, we're going to release it to theaters, but we're also going to release it to Disney Plus because we know that's how we're going to make our money. And so they're thinking that she's going to make up to $50 million from this because on opening weekend, she did like $60 million on Disney Plus alone. So it took all the people from Disney Plus from the box offices. So everything's evolving, everything's changing in the movie industry. And this was the other very interesting thing that I saw looking up the Matt Damon story. So the global box office takings don't lie. In 1997, when Matt Damon became a household name thanks to Good Will Hunting, leading men were the big draw. Now it's superheroes and cartoons that draw crowds to the multiplexes, with A-listers hidden behind masks or left providing the voices. So basically what they're saying is that all of these studios are now making it, it's not movie stars that are selling the movie anymore. It's, Iron Man. But guess what? Anyone can be Iron Man, not just Robert Downey Jr. because he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and they're changing. How many people have played Batman?
Exactly. Or Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. So you look at it, this is 97, a couple of the top movies. Titanic, Leo DiCaprio. You have Men in Black, Will Smith, Liar Liar, Jim Carrey. You're going to see these people. The movie stars are selling the show.
Yeah.
But now, the top movies in 2019, Avengers Endgame, Iron Man, Frozen 2, Elsa, Aladdin, like The Joker. And that too, The Joker was played
by so many people, yeah.
So I don't know if that's on purpose. Well, of course it is. That's what.
Well, they're just following the money and the crowds. Someone was saying that there's more problems that could happen if a studio goes, I got $200 million. Mm-hmm. I want to make a bunch of films this year. If you take $200 million and divide it up into $20 million films, so you do 10 $20 million films, now you've got 10 films with 10 crews, 10 actors, 10 different projects that could have problems, and they just go, and then 10 movies to market, all this kind of stuff. And they go, what if we just don't do the $20 million films? What if we just do one $200 million film?
Yep.
And they started seeing, so as you've noticed, there is no in-between films anymore. It's either super story-driven, independent indies that like Shia LaBeouf does a lot, Robert Pattinson, I feel, Casey Affleck. Like there's a lot of like really like hits your soul, like you watch. I think that's the thing with like a Fast and Furious, is that it's not done well enough with story, with the acting.
Yeah.
Because how can you be like but when you watch like a story about like a love story or like those independent films, but they don't make money.
Yeah.
They're very like art pieces.
Yeah.
Like they make some.
Right.
And then there's nothing anymore. And then they also have shown that someone like Johnny Depp or like you said, Matt Damon, it's just not enough for people to go to the theater. That's why you'll see like even Fast and Furious, Charlize Theron, Helen Mirren, Jason Statham, Vin Diesel. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
They're jam-packing huge stars to try to do all this stuff. But with that happening, with the streaming services happening, and the uprising of personal brands, and even like what we're like our whole plan of doing it too.
Yeah.
It's like building your own brand or having your own streaming service, or everything is just changing. And I don't know what Hollywood's going to be in 10 years, to be honest.
Well, you know, it's kind of crazy because with the Fast and the Furious, you just watch the 9th one. And sometimes you're like, oh, is it better left alone? And then it makes me think of now Sex and the City. So they obviously had, I think it was like 6 seasons that they did. One of my favorite shows. Then they had 2 movies that they did. And the second movie was just kind of like, meh. Both of the movies were okay. It was like that. The show was great. Now they're coming out with a reboot of a TV show on HBO Max. So it's not a movie. I thought it was a movie at first. But it's called And Just Like That. So it's a spinoff of Sex and the City. However, Sex and the City is 4 lead girls. One of the lead girls, Kim Cattrall, is not coming back because she had a lot of issues with the cast. And I'm like, as a fan, I'm still very excited because I love it. But now, you know, this is 20 years later. They're older. It's different. One of the main characters isn't going to be there. Like, is this going to be worth touching, or I don't know.
I like what they did with Friends. Like when they did a Friends reunion, they just had them come back and chit chat,
which was very cool.
But then it's also weird because they're frozen in time. When you think of Friends, the show, they're 30. Mm-hmm. Then you see everybody 52, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, Joey's like in his 50s, but you know Joey as 28.
When you fall in love with them, it's a specific look. So, and I felt so bad even thinking this, but in some pics, I'm just like, whoa.
You're just aware of time.
Yeah, you had so much surgery or, you know, just older. But I think that's solely because we fell in love with the characters at a certain age, and that's what we think in our head.
So it's just going to be interesting to see, like, as much as like Breaking Bad was one of my favorite shows, you know, let's just let it be.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe not. We have to see what's going to happen with it. But
are they bringing it back?
What?
Breaking Bad?
No.
Oh.
But I do think they're doing a Sopranos movie.
How are they going to do that?
I think it's before Tony. So they're doing a prequel of it. But it looks like people are basically making films now off of brand rather than the person.
Right.
Because The Sopranos is a brand.
Yeah.
Sex and the City is it's more than just because at the end of the day, like, what other stories are there? Like I love watching action films, but it's always the same. It's the cop who retires, and then his best friend who's helping him turns out to be the bad guy, and he kidnapped the daughter.
Yeah.
And then he's kidnapped, and he somehow gets out of it, and then kills all of them, and then the daughter's with him at the end. Like, it's the same story. And I think we're just so fascinated with reality now. And you see that on network television. Every network television from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. is all reality. The Voice, dancing, game shows. It's reality. It's easy to produce. And we're also watching all the reality and authenticity happening with TikTok and YouTube.
Yep.
And people are tuning into podcasts. And you're more like, this is real.
Yeah.
And I think we're evolving to the point where we're watching these films going, like even Fast and the Furious, I was like, this is like obviously fake and it's just fun to watch.
Right.
But it's just, I don't know, it's just different now. And I don't know what's happening, but like I'm very curious what's going to happen in Hollywood in 10 years. There's obviously still going to be movies being made, but what are going to happen, and is it going to change the way it's edited?
Well, here's my quick question for you. I don't know if you know this. Maybe we should look it up. But so when film first came and there were silent films, like what year was that?
I don't know.
Let me just look. I'm just curious because I
have
a point.
Maybe the 30s?
What year were silent films?
Or what was the first silent film?
Let's see here. So to the late 1920s.
So from 1890 to 1920 was all silent films.
1920s. Okay, so they started with silent films. So think about looking at the attention span of people during that time. They were watching silent films, you know?
Yeah.
And like life was really different before, like that was their entertainment. Then, obviously after that, they started having actual stories that they could tell and they could speak. And then that...
And their color.
And then they were in color as well. And so these stories, people were able to get creative, and then they would bring in the dancing and the entertainment and then the comedy and the sitcoms and then the drama and then the action, all these different genres. And I feel like now we're at this point where, and this started, I'd say, even like 8 years ago, maybe even sooner. It's all about nostalgia. They're selling us on these brands that we've loved and for so long. I mean, you just see so many remakes of the same story over and over and over again. And so now with the introduction of social media, we're all kind of like, well, what's next? And Matt Damon even said that. He goes, I see how my kids watch films. So eventually, I think, I don't know, are we going to be watching films on our phone? I know on Snapchat, our friend was just in a movie that was released on Snapchat. I don't know if I'd want to sit and watch that, but I don't know. What is it going to turn into? But for so long, they had these fresh, unique ideas of their stories that they were telling because it was all new, and now the same story can only be told so many times, so they're just kind of remaking it all, I guess.
Even I think it's just the way of editing. Like there's certain things that, and we don't realize like how much that plays a part into it, but I think it's going to be jumping into what you need to see, because even vlogs have changed. Like even 4 years ago, if we were going to do one, putting a bunch of music and showing a bunch of B-roll was interesting, but now people click out. They're like, I just want to see the juice. And when you're watching vlogs, you don't even have to have a story. You just have to have 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes of just compiled awesomeness, and people are entertained.